Okay.
Try standard one. Yeah. I actually asked questions or something. I had high order questions, but then low order.
Okay, so learner development says the candidate understands how students grow and develop, recognizing the patterns of learning and development vary individually across the cognitive, linguistic, social, emotional, and physical areas, and designs and implements developmentally appropriate and challenging learning experience. Does the candidate use knowledge about the student's growth and development to design and implement developmentally appropriate and challenging learning experience? So I would say yes, because you guided them through color schemes and the color wheel, and I feel like you knew that they didn't have that prior knowledge, because when you started talking about like monochromatic versus colors that complement each other, they didn't know the vocabulary. So they weren't ready. Had you not done that lesson about pointing out the color wheel, pointing out the how to get complement colors, counting, vice versa, they probably wouldn't have they had to visually see it, right? And you had to go over it over and over. The opposite of green is red, the opposite of yellow is orange, for them to really understand first before they can go on to produce anything. So I would say, do you use knowledge about the student's growth? I'm assuming since it's almost November, based on what they've produced in the past, you're able to detect where they're at, right, currently? I don't know, do you want to?
Well, you know, you actually show evidence as they went on to the next lesson when they started painting. And as they got near the end of the project, you could see the evidence of what they learned. They applied it into their motif painting. You can see the 4 colors plus the additional colors, which is a total of 8. So it looks as if, I mean, from the project, the students understood, you know. That was just another way to show what they've learned. I actually had to check before they started painting to see if they understood. So, yeah. So it demonstrated that way.
Oh, no. Okay.
All right.
All right, so let's look at Teach Standard 2, learning differences. Ya casi terminamos. Okay. Okay, está bien. It says the candidate uses understanding of individual differences, diverse cultures, and communities to ensure inclusive learning environments that enable each student to meet high standards.
I think that's interpreted to me as including everyone. Try to get everybody included into the learning environment.
Yeah, are you engaging the students? So I think that you did have some real life examples. You talked about the box, the crayon box, and that's something that everyone can relate to. I mean, at some point we've all seen like the different colors in the crayon box. You also talked about like the sun and how you see like the yellow and the orange and the Christmas colors, and everyone can kind of like, oh, that makes sense why those colors are being put together. And I think at one point or another, you are able to give them different real life examples to make it so that everyone has something that they can relate to and understand color schemes by that way or another.
Right. It seems like the students understood. I heard them conversating with each other relating to the lesson. Some gave comments that were slightly off. Others gave comments that were on target. So
yeah.
So they all were included into the lessons. And those who were off were not told they were off. We just continued on until we found the correct solution to the questions or problem.
I would say something that could be done too is having them think of those colors, examples of when they see those colors would be helpful to get them all, like the people that weren't talking, just to say like, when have you seen these colors, or what is something that like hits home, like hits home to you when you think about these colors, to just kind of see where everyone's at.
Could you also ask them something about their favorite colors? How would you use this favorite color? How would you apply this favorite color? Does that make sense too?
The favorite color, I don't know. I mean, everyone has a favorite color, but maybe that would just be more like a monochromatic thing. But since your lesson was mainly on colors that complement, and they have to look at various colors, maybe you could say favorite color, and then what would be the color that complements that favorite color? I mean, I don't know,
But how would I get a student engaged if he or she was not engaged in this? How would I get them and start with since I already had some sort of higher questions, will I have lower order questions to bring them in?
Oh, you mean like to just start talking in general?
get
Yeah, you
everybody
can start
involved.
talking about like, okay, think about your favorite color. What are some items or things that you see that are in that color? You know what I mean? Like if people love like Thanksgiving, like what are the fall colors? Like they're orange, and why do you see like orange and like gold together, or yellow because it's kind of like a yellowish, and maybe even talk about like the different tones in that color.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and then lastly, I would say, okay, Teach 3, it says candidate works with others to create environments that support individual and collaborative learning and encourages positive social interactions, active engagement in learning, and self-motivation. Does the candidate create environments that support individual and collaborative learning, positive social interactions, active engagement in learning, and self-motivation? So that's one thing I didn't see yet, but I think it's because it was the beginning of the lesson. It was mainly more use guiding the direction, the classroom first. I don't know if you've got them to engage with one another, because this is more like they're talking and they're being supportive and encouraging each other. So I don't know what are some steps that you could do in the future to get them to that level.
You say you noticed it a little bit in the beginning, or you didn't?
No, I didn't, because
Okay.
I believe that you're doing mainly self-direction. You're doing more directed learning instead of student-centered. Yeah.
And what would student-centered learning look like in this situation?
So in this situation, once they start doing their projects, I would say maybe you could have one student do one color and the other student paint the complement of the other color.
That's very good.
Yeah, or right, because then they're both talking about like compliments of each other. And then I noticed that in the video, the one girl said those were my colors after you had given her 4 complement colors. So it seemed like she didn't want anyone else to take her complement colors. So I would do something around like you guys. So then if these are your complement colors, what would be like some of your complements colors that you could paint, and then have them kind of do like a competition of like the best like murals with those complement colors.
Now another question: if a student was to help another student in this phase of the lesson, would that be considered student-centered or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
It would be considered. Definitely. Any kind of student-centered is when the students are working with each other versus like when they're just hearing you talk and you directing them.
What if I act as a facilitator?
You can walk
to
around
them?
and act as a facilitator, and that would still be student-centered.
Good.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yep.
Well, all righty.
Okay.